On today's episode of Lawyers with Game, we're talking with Rebecca Longawa about live esports tournaments like Halo and her new role as COO of Native Gaming.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lawyers with Game. I'm your host, Darius Gambino. I'm an attorney with Saul Ewing in Philadelphia. I routinely advise clients on issues related to patents, trademarks, and copyrights. I'm also a lifelong gamer, currently playing on the PlayStation 5. You can find me on the PlayStation Network as EaglesFan71. With me today is my colleague, Leah Leyendecker. Leah, maybe you could introduce yourself and say a few words about your practice.
Yeah, thanks, Darius. I'm Leah Leyendecker. I am resident in the Saul Ewing, Minneapolis office. I have a primarily transactional practice that deals a lot with intellectual property and technology issues, and I've worked with organizations in the esports industry for the last maybe 5 or so years.
Thanks, Leah. And we're excited to have as our guest today, Rebecca Longawa. Rebecca started a company called Happy Warrior many years ago, and she's been a trusted advisor to athletes, celebrities, esports orgs, and esports athletes for many years. And she's recently been named the COO of Native Gaming, an esports org that is entirely Native American owned and operated. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Darius. Nice to see you again, and nice to see you, Leah.
It's great to have you on. Great to see you. So I wanted to jump right in to ask you about your path to where you are right now. I mean, you've worked with a lot of athletes over the years, Ricky Rubio, and I know a bunch of others. So can you talk about how you first got started into working with athletes, and then how you made the transition into working in esports?
Yeah, so really, if you would have asked me growing up what my path was, I really wasn't sure. I loved being creative. I really liked to draw and paint and sketch and the arts. That was always a big passion of mine. And I was pretty fortunate to get an entry-level job at an advertising agency in their production department. And this will date me, but this was 1999. So the internet wasn't this big boom yet. It existed, but it wasn't in everybody's household necessarily at that time. And the digital space in regards to marketing and advertising was very niche. So I was really able to kind of ride that, digital wave organically by being boots on the ground at really the right time. And the agency that I worked at ran FedEx's sponsorship of the NFL and of kart racing. And so from the time it was my very early 20s, I started learning about sports marketing, experiential marketing, being able to create fan engagement, as well as incentivize fans to, meet KPIs, goals, and objectives that the companies need. And with that experience, I went and evolved my career into an all digital agency called Space 150 in Minnesota. We were really focused on digital. We kind of shifted our agency into two kind of core competencies. Sports and entertainment was kind of one bucket, and then corporate clients was another. We really leveraged the types of creative talent and personalities that we had to serve those clients very differently based on those different, unique needs that each of those styles of clients have. And I was on the sports and entertainment kind of side of that agency, working with a lot of really cool brands. We worked with Lakeshore Entertainment when Million Dollar Baby won, their Oscar, and it was Lakeshore was just this really small kind of indie film company at the time. We helped them build their brand and their website, which is really fun. We worked with some performance companies like Ellsworth Bikes. And we worked with the Timberwolves and Lynx, Orlando Magic, and the NBA. And all of those were my accounts, my projects. And I just, I kind of became a Swiss Army knife, kind of doing whatever needs to be done. And when my family started to grow, I had gotten married, my family was starting to grow, decided to work from home and just freelance. and work directly with some clients so I could be there and, take care of my kids, which is a story of a lot of people. So this is the kind of the things that a lot of women do in portions of their career. So I was still producing film shoots, photo shoots, went on contract with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and really kind of became part of that Timberwolves family. Really evolving it from an agency experience to an independent contractor. And so my career's just kind of organically evolved in that way again and again, being close with the Wolves. I got to a point where my son had started preschool and I wanted to go back to work. I reached out to the Wolves, went in-house with them for a few years, had started building relationships with some of the corporate partners there, and one of which wanted to bring me on to help them build out their sports and entertainment division at their financial firm, and then worked with Ricky. And things just have kind of snowballed very, very organically. So I can't say there was ever a time where I said, this is where I want to be, and these are all the steps I'm going to take to get there. It's more of been being somebody who's open to conversation, open to connection, really leaning in on what's next, learning about personal branding and building out social media strategy, and then being able to educate athletes directly on that. It just felt like something I was so passionate about working with them on, that it just kind of started evolving the types of strengths that I had and the skills that I was building. And esports happened by a company called Stadia Ventures, which I think you may be familiar with. Stadia. They do global investment. They work with a lot of sports technology and entertainment technology companies. I came on as an advisor, as part of their advisory and mentorship group. And what had happened at Stadia is there were esports technology companies applying for mentorship and funding. And I remember sitting and hearing a pitch from this company, and after they pitch, they kind of leave the room and you talk about them and you discuss. And we were like, who even knows a lot about what this esports and gaming thing is, and a few of us raised our hands, and that really put some fire underneath me to say, this is really going to be hot. Like, I'd already worked on some freelance events in the Twin Cities. Mystic Lake Casino did an event called Player Up, and I did partnerships for that. So I was already kind of familiar with what was going on in esports, but this just put like gas on it, where I was like, I really want to learn a lot, and started just really leveraging LinkedIn to start networking with people that were already in the space and just asking them to tell me about what they were doing and being willing to learn. And then, of course, with COVID, esports coming into the United States had a lot of viability because traditional sports was on pause. So it's my very long answer.
That's really interesting. And I don't think I ever asked you this before, but in that time when, you were sitting in that room and raising your hand and saying, I'm the esports person, had you played a lot of games like in the past? Were you, a Genesis player or a Nintendo or Super Nintendo player?
No, I mean, I would say, being someone who had had my first child when I was 22 years old, I kind of, that's a time where I probably haven't played video games since then,
Yeah.
I'll go to like old school arcades and Dave and Buster's and things of that nature. But no, at my core, I'm not a gamer. But also, I will say I did work in the NBA for so many years and wasn't a basketball player either. So it's really understanding the business of basketball, the business of esports and gaming, and really honing in on, building out strong brand and partnership strategies that really meet the needs and expectations of that brand. Can be done in multiple areas. So having experience with experiential advertising agencies, digital advertising agencies, traditional print agencies over so many years, I've been working in sports marketing since I was 19. So for 26 years, it's hard to just tell that story because it's a really long career so far. Yeah. And, you really kind of understand that you can apply that into a lot of different areas. It's all about understanding kind of what is viable and hot And right now, trying to reach that next generation of consumers, Gen Z, how can you do that through something they're already doing, which is the video game industry? And so, it's, for me, it's bigger than just competitive. It's bigger than esports. It's the entire gaming ecosystem that I really try to focus on and stay on top of the best that I can, because I think that you really need to have more of a robust approach. And I don't think esports in and of itself is a complete answer for brands when it comes to reaching those demographics.
Yeah, right. I mean, you have activations within games. You have things that are, kind of game adjacent. So yeah, there's a lot of different things besides just activations at events. So Leah, I'll kick it to you for a question.
Yeah. Sort of building off of that, I know a lot of the work that you've done in esports really centers around connecting esports entities with brands to help them monetize their organizations through sponsorships or different types of activations. I'd love for you just to tell us a little bit more about that and about your work in those areas.
Yeah, I think my experience that I've had in the past really helps inform a strong strategy for brands. So I have worked directly with brands that are, trying to reach that consumer, to help them build out a thoughtful approach to esports and to gaming. The way that I like to work is I think about things from not only building out an authentic message or an authentic campaign that that anchors to credibility by working with existing esports organizations or gaming organizations and publishers. But also, I like to really learn a lot about the brand, that client, to ensure that what we're doing and where we're putting them is extremely thoughtful and anchors back to monetization for them, or whatever their goals are. I mean, when you take a look at a brand, like a luxury brand, for example, they're not necessarily going to have one-for-one sales within esports. It's more of brand, brand awareness and long-term approach for a brand like that. But there's others that are trying to, really bring in monetization right off the bat. So I'll share quickly what we've recently seen. I think where brands and properties have tried to reach a new demographic and have, really has backfired. I think the biggest, most recent example would be Bud Light, in their approach in obviously trying to reach a new demographic is wonderful, and trying to be inclusive is phenomenal. I think that where Bud Light really had made an error in their decision in partnering with Dylan Mulvaney was not necessarily understanding their existing consumer base and recognizing how that could make their existing consumer base feel alienated. So I think it's really important for brands to be honest about their core consumers and really understand their core consumers. So one example that I've worked on with version 1 and Rocker is Bush's Baked Beans. So if you take a look at a brand like Bush's Baked Beans, it's family owned and it's been around for over 200 years. Their key consumers, are over 55 years old, and that's their existing demographic. So how can you build out a program or a campaign to reach Gen Z that's not going to alienate the existing consumer, that's not going to make them think that it's so far-fetched? So one of the things that we did, we kind of looked at where they currently are, which is like racing and NASCAR. Cornhole is another place that Bush's Baked Beans fits. And we started really thinking about and asking a lot of questions about where success could potentially look like for them. When it comes to really trying to reach gamers, you have to think about a few different things. What is a game that you can attach a brand to that isn't going to upset or alienate your existing consumers? So we definitely thought we probably should avoid any type of first-person shooter game. right? Because a first person shooter game to a grandma or a grandpa, that might seem a little bit overwhelming to them. Now, is it based in reality? Is it based in like, these are really bad things? No, of course not. But perception and attitude and sentiment are always really important to consider when you're building out a campaign, is really knowing who that audience is. We knew they were in NASCAR, so we thought about, racing. So that was kind of the first bucket is, okay, what can we do within racing? Well, version 1 has a Rocket League team. And we also have great relationships throughout the Rocket League community, great relationships with the publisher, with some of the event producers, and with Collegiate Rocket League. And one of the things that we discovered when we were going through marketing strategy with Bush's was that they make a lot of money working directly on college campuses in food service programs within the dorms. So what we worked with their CMO and their analytics team on was identifying schools that Bush's did not have relationships with, that they would like to have relationships, that had the ability to make their own independent decision on what food goes into that school. So they weren't part of a big national conglomerate. But we took that long list they gave us, we cross-referenced it with Collegiate Rocket League teams that already existed and that were already participating with CRL. So already part of the Rocket League family. And we did kind of a 3-pronged approach. We did an invitational where we were able to create conversation and relationships between Bush's and those schools by inviting them to a private invitational Rocket League tournament. We created custom content with version 1's Rocket League team, and specifically Com, who is one of the players on version 1, but whose dad is a 5-star chef. And so it's Cooking with Com became the series. And we were making really unique dishes featuring Bush's beans. So we did black bean brownies, for example, was one of the dishes that we made. And then, we pushed that content out to the existing fan base at version 1. And then the third thing we did was had Bush's Baked Beans be the title sponsor for Collegiate Rocket League Summer Series. So that allowed them to gain broader impression. So you're really doing 3 things. You're helping them make unique content. You're helping them reach new consumers and monetize their company, which makes putting the money towards the entire activation worth it. But then you're also getting a lot of metrics, new followers, and deeper brand awareness throughout esports. So that is, really that's the approach. That's, I think, the right way to work with brands. I think there's not a lot of deep strategy and thought being done at a lot of other organizations, which, it helps set me apart, but I think we need a lot more of these organizations, these esports orgs, to really take that approach of understanding their client and working with them on solutions that are going to be really advantageous for that client, in lieu of just thinking about the goal being signing a partner and putting them on the stuff that you're currently working on and that you're doing. I think that there needs to be just a deeper mindset on evolving the strategy of esports partnerships overall.
I'm curious, Rebecca, is it generally sort of you identifying brands that you think would be a good fit, or do esports orgs come to you with sort of a target in mind?
Things usually happen from, there's really 3 different ways all happening at the same time. Number 1, brands or their agencies will reach out to me directly and say, hey, this esports thing, we're really trying to figure it out. What can we do as a brand to set ourselves apart and to get in? And this is usually they kind of have a range of what their budget would be, or they're asking what should they be spending, what's appropriate, and then helping them identify based on, their existing consumers and what they're currently doing. Then I can help them build a relationship within the industry, or even just I've worked directly with agencies before, with major national and global brands on even fielding a strategy for their media on, here's 10 places that could work for you. And then I help deliver that message. And then I kind of step away and the agency runs the campaign. So where it shakes out isn't necessarily exactly, all 10 of the things that I put together or 5 of the different directions. So that's one way. It's working directly with a brand or their agency. The other way is when I've worked with properties like the Game Hers, for example, working with the Game Hers on identifying potential brands to partner with really is about understanding who the Game Hers fan base is, who is part of that community, what do they believe in, what products are they already using, what is their lifestyle, and what is the types of lifestyle that a lot of these gamers that I do identify as women, what are the brands that they're engaging with and what is their lifestyle, and then proactively reach out to those types of brands. And I like to do it usually like vertical by vertical. So if it's makeup, we might be having conversations over 2 or 3 weeks with different makeup brands and really just kind of telling the story and seeing if there's an alignment there. The third is just straight up reaching out like a shotgun approach, right? So that shotgun approach of just get out what the thing is that's happening. So it might be, Minnesota Rocker hosting a big Call of Duty major tournament. And you just want to get that deck that's specifically about that major tournament, that you want to get that in front of as many eyeballs as you possibly can and just kind of poke it out there and see, are there companies that are interested in getting involved in this? So you give them all the information that you have in terms of location, timing, what the lift is, what are the opportunities, who are they going to be getting in front of, how are they going to be able to engage either digitally through the stream or in real life at the event, and and see if you can catch something with that net. So there's really, I think I look at it in a 3-pronged approach, and they're all important, and no one is more, important than the other. I think you need all 3 in order to be successful.
So I wanted to pivot a little bit, Rebecca, and ask you about live esports events. You were recently named Chief Operating Officer at Native Gaming, which is a relatively new esports organization that's entirely Native American owned and operated. And I know that you've gone to some Halo live events with Native, and they've been doing really well there. And I think you've gone to some Call of Duty events recently. So the question is, are live esports events back at pre-pandemic levels?
Well, I'd only been to a handful of pre-pandemic esports events. I will say this weekend, people were pinging me and sending me photos of the Rocket League Worlds, which was in Germany. That was this enormously, just completely packed stadium. I was at DreamHack recently in Dallas, Texas, and also in San Diego. And both of those events were, extremely well attended, a lot of fans. This Halo tournament we were at recently in Salt Lake City was a sold out tournament. They, it really comes down to capacity. So I don't think it's like, can't compare apples to apples. You can't say, pick a look at a League of Legends Worlds and compare it to a Halo Invitational, so to speak. But for what events I've been to, most are sold out, if not close to being sold out events. I think anything that Optic has been touching in terms of curating events at Arlington Stadium have been to full capacity, like you're just like nervously watching the fire marshal walk in the door. Like, are we all good in this place? Because this place is popping, It definitely feels like we're in a really good spot still in esports. And, that could evolve the conversation into a lot of the news that we've been seeing about esports. But to where we are at, we're feeling pretty good. We're feeling really confident. Native Gaming, we just had our very first booth. We are, a year old, so a pretty young organization. We compete in Halo and Apex Legends. We have a handful of extremely talented streamers in our roster. And at this event, it was our first time having a booth, fan facing. We did a big PC giveaway with our partners at Viral out of Ohio. They sent a PC out. It was Native Gaming branded. We had 250 plus people who registered for that free drawing. We, leveraged Jake Lucky being there to draw the winner live. That was a really cool moment for us. And, for us as a smaller org, those are the things that are really exciting to be able to do, is be able to get engaged in front of our fans. We had players signing autographs. We had Collect, who's one of the youngest players in Halo. He's 19 years old. He did 1v1s with fans, and that created a really great moment of energy where, really engaging and sitting right next to a fan and playing live with them. That was a really cool moment for us as well. So, when it comes to native gaming and the culture that I want to build as our organization, and after talking with ownership and, really finding out what success looks like for them, there's always goals in regards to, the necessary things, which is growing socials, growing our consumer base, building out merch, which we've been doing now, and obviously bringing in revenue. Those are goals. But the largest thing, and why I really, really wanted to work with the team at Native Gaming, is their main focus is impact. How can Native Gaming impact indigenous communities through the world of esports and gaming? How can they shine a light on what is happening in indigenous communities to the broader esports and gaming audience? And how can we work together to make really a boots on the ground impact for those communities? And that's why, as I was thinking about where my career needed to evolve, that's what made Native Gaming really stand out to me. And I met Dean in Vegas in November. So, we met less than a year ago, and I've always been extremely loyal in my relationship to Version 1 and Rocker. So when I knew my contract was ending with Version 1 and Rocker, I circled back with Dean and the team at Native, and I said, hey, I'm going to have capacity now. And, integrity means everything to me. And these guys have so much integrity, and their vision is powerful. And the work I've done with the gamers and my level of experience, I'm confident that I can work with them to build out something really special. So it all takes time, but we are really excited to really, do just that, make an impact.
That's great. Leah?
Yeah. So I'm going to switch gears again and ask you about a topic that's always interesting to me and Darius. What are some of the legal issues that you've had to navigate throughout your years advising esports organizations?
The largest issues that we see is on the contract side. Usually what's happening is some of these smaller esports orgs that are cropping up either are not creating appropriate contracts, are not having any contracts, are, bringing in a lot of independent contractors as staff, and they're not adequately planning for ensuring that their organization is, viable, right? In terms of being able to pay people. There's kind of been this ongoing thoughts and prayers approach to creating esports orgs. I would say, I don't know if it's a legal issue, but one of the biggest issues that I'm seeing is there's really a lack of accountability and vetting to who can come in and compete in these competitions. The barrier to entry in so many titles is quite low, which can be great for an organization that is really prepared and is building out a forecast for the entirety of a season and ensuring that they have all of that funding at the entirety of the season before they start. But I think what we're starting to see, and you're seeing a lot of the chatter even in the last few weeks with properties like G1, is you are getting esports organizations just throwing themselves out there, not having that funding secured, biting off more than they can chew, and then screwing a lot of people over. And it's really a detriment to the over esports ecosystem, because from an external perspective, you can look like you have it all together on the outside, but then when these things come to light, it really shakes the core fabric of what esports is from an outside perspective. And it's not really fair to the properties that do plan accordingly and that have built out the appropriate funding in order to ensure that their people will be taken care of. And I just don't think it's fair to put people into, a box to where, for me personally, in my experiences with women's carball and G1 taking over, they're like, I wasn't willing to work for free any longer. I worked for free for 2.5 months, was not getting adequate responses on when I was going to get paid. And then just kind of, have had to walk away. And I'll still send invoices. Like a lot of people also have just still been sending invoices and hoping that something will come. And I know that, it's hard because you want to believe in people that they're going to do the right thing. But there's such a lack of foundational, I don't know what the word would be. You guys are the attorneys, so maybe you know how things are built out. I mean, we have a trade association, right? The Esports Trade Association. I don't know, is there a way to leverage a trade association to ensure that the right boxes are being checked? And it is hard, even for me and my levels of experiences. I can ask the right questions, but if I'm not getting a response on what does your P&L look like and what's your cap table look like, and how, like, are you ready to go? I can only go by what people are willing to tell me. So, there's a lot of people that do get stuck in that sticky situation where you take somebody at their word and you do your work. And sometimes you get taken advantage of. And we're seeing that with a lot of players coming out in the last couple of weeks saying, hey, I have a contract and it's signed and this is how much money I'm supposed to be making. And I haven't been paid in 3 months or 8 months or however long these players haven't been paid. It's a detriment, I think, to the entire ecosystem because there's very few teams that are treating people that way, but they're making the most noise.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into another question I was going to ask you, which is we've seen over the last couple of years a lot of what I would call financial mixed messages in esports, right? You see investments and growth in maybe one org, and then you see a lot of layoffs in another org, and also in publishers as well, not just teams and orgs. And then within the last couple of months, you saw a $38 billion investment from the Saudi Arabian government into esports in the US. So they're seeing something.
Mm-hmm.
What are you seeing in terms of US investments and the kind of stabilization of the esports industry on the financial side?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to that. I would say, I think esports was such a buzz during COVID. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. And now we're seeing kind of a recorrection of that. Just because something's cool doesn't mean you know how to run it, right? Just because you think it's great doesn't mean you need to be there. So there's some of that. Also, I think esports has been extremely dependent upon, what would be the word, endemic brand partnerships. And in the overall market that's happened, just the economy in general, a lot of those brands are more than likely, and I'm not one, but more than likely based on past history of things I've worked on, taking a look at their entire marketing strategy and saying, hey, do we really need to market to gamers when they're gaming, when they're dependent on using our products anyways? Like, we can probably skim some fat here and save some money by not putting so much into this bucket, right? And when you're an esports org that the majority of your partnerships have always just been the endemics, and you don't know how to talk to or build relationships with those non-endemic brands, I think that's one area where we really collectively missed the boat as an industry. There was not you got to really take moments as they're on the rise. And when teams were bringing in a lot of revenue in 2020, 2021, I think they should have thrown more gas on, okay, now let's start. All these non-endemic brands are really interested in esports. let's work tirelessly to bring in some marketing strategists and brand strategists on our team that come from either, agency world is probably preferable, to help us really get into other areas. Now, you will see properties who are good at that, which would be, like the FaZe Clans and the Optics and the LA Thieves. They've had a lot of really wonderful non-endemic partners. A lot of the other properties haven't been as successful in doing that, right? So that's one area. And then I think, the last is what happens also in the agency world, which is you grow your team based on your brand partners because you have to activate all of that. And then so when those partners started to go away, they really didn't need to have as many people on staff because they're just sitting there to do nothing. And in the agency world, you see this, it ebbs and flows all the time. It's very accounts based. So you get a big account come in, you get a target account come in, and you hire 20 people and they're working on the target account. And that campaign, maybe Target chooses a different agency of record in 3 years, and you see massive layoffs. And, being in the Twin Cities market, and Leah, you're in the same market as well. There's a lot of agencies here. So, you see that news kind of fluctuating as well. And I think we're going to see that in esports. We're going to see some properties being hotter than others. You also see people who are like, man, we could probably leverage this time to kind of trim the fat and run leaner and be more profitable by getting rid of some dead weight. And there's no better time to do it than when everybody else is distracted by everybody doing all these layoffs. So I would suspect that there's also a tad smidge of that happening as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Leah, I'll let you finish this off with one last question for Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks, Darius. So this, as it always is with you, Rebecca, this has been a great conversation. To end our episode, I'd love for you to give us a sneak peek at what's on the horizon for you and Native Gaming.
Yeah, really excited about the future of Native Gaming. We just brought on an intern that is going to be working with us part-time, that she's a graduate student and she is indigenous, and her everything that she stands for, everything that she builds, everything that she's researching and studying is all on impact of STEAM and STEM and indigenous communities. So I'm super excited to be working with Angie on that because it will allow us to really help shape up and tell our story and build out really an aspirational vision that we can then go to purpose-driven brands and organizations to build out, the future for, indigenous kids that we can really leverage STEAM programs, really want to change lives. And that's really what we aim to do.
That's great. Yeah, I love the aim of Native Gaming and what you're trying to do there, and that's great stuff. And we look forward to more from Native Gaming. So,
thank you.
So that's all the time that we have for today. Keep in mind that this series is intended to be a very general discussion of legal issues. It is not intended as actual legal advice. If you need actual legal advice, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you. If you have any questions about any of the topics we discussed, drop them into the comments and we'll try to answer them for you. I want to give a big thank you to Rebecca Longawa, founder at Happy Warrior and COO at Native Gaming, for being our guest today. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
And for myself and my co-host Leah, we'll see you next time on Lawyers with Game.